Welcome to the Modern CPA Success Show, where we're 100% focused on helping accounting firms achieve success. If you're an accounting firm owner who wants to learn how to grow your firm by providing virtual CFO services, then this podcast is for you.
Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm very excited for today's guest and topic. This is an area that really I've just kind of heard about recently, but Larry's gonna expand into it. But before we get down that path, I'm Jamie Nahn. I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by Adam Hale as always.
Hello, everybody.
And Larry West, who is the president of Precision Business Strategies. So very excited for Larry to join the show. And welcome to the show, Larry.
Hey, thanks for having me, and hi to all the listeners out there.
All right, so let's just get started with the basic stuff, Larry. So I know you're one of our course people, part of our course, and so tell us a little bit about your firm and what you guys do and kind of your niche and how you got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So our company, Precision Business Strategies, is really a consulting firm primarily. And so we work across a couple of different areas, the primary being accounting and finance and more of the CFO style structure for the clients that we work with. And we niche down specifically in the real estate space, amongst a few others, but mainly in the real estate space, working with private equity funds, real estate syndicators, as well as those in the short-term rental space that are doing phenomenal things. We got started in 2021. I spent the bulk of my career working for traditional CPA firms, and then made the decision around the summertime to step out on my own and start my own firm. And it's really one of those things that the entrepreneurial bug and itch was there, but also there was just a drive to step out of what we see with traditional CPA firms and step more into that CFO and strategic advisor role. And so that drove a lot of it. And but we'll talk about this a little bit more, but we did a lot of work on Clubhouse to really get our brand and name out there. And, the fourth quarter of last year was where we really started to hit the ground and take off.
Well, what made you think about real estate, man? Like, was that one of those things that you had a lot of experience working with the other firm that you were at and then decided to kind of take it from there, or just love real estate? I mean, I can't imagine that, like, if I own a rental property, I would be a good customer for you. So, like, how did you figure out how to find people that could, one, need the CFO service, and two, be able to afford it? That you talk about real estate syndicates, like, what's that all about?
Yeah, so, I've been in love with real estate for a long time, and it started just on the aspirational side of, how do I figure out how to get a couple of single family rentals, make this transition over to the passive side and start to build out that portfolio. But when I dived into that world, it expanded way beyond just a couple of single family rentals. And I started to learn more about the multifamily and the commercial side of real estate. And man, it just took off from there. The idea of a syndication and pulling those funds together is attractive within itself, but then just the inner workings of understanding everything from investor relations and how you do that to cap tables, a different type of fundraising models out there. And it's the complexity that draws me to it. And that's where I really fell in love. And then starting to work with some clients in that space and seeing that it's more than just, putting funds together and going to acquire a building. It's one of those things that just, it's like this, when you know. And when I started to drive down that rabbit hole of real estate, I fell in love with it. And aspirationally, it's space that I get into personally. But then on the other side, it was ripe with opportunities from the business side, because most people think, hey, landlording, couple single family rentals, and that's all that happens in that space. But when I started talking to fund managers and syndicators, there were so many gaps that traditional firms just weren't filling. And it's like, hey, this is a space that we can jump into and make some noise.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people that go down that path that you went down. I've talked to a lot of people in person or listened to podcasts where they're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to own a single family home and I'll rent it out. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to own 2. Now I'm going to own 3. And then it's like, wait, I can do a commercial building, or I can do a larger building that has 10 units in it. And so I've heard so many people go down that path. So I think you've really hit an area that is very ripe for a lot of people that are like, just get there. They're like, 2 years ago I had 1 house. Now I have 4 houses and a rental unit, and it's grown. So I think there's a lot of room for people that are just kind of fall into this as well.
Well, not just
Yep.
that. I mean, I think at least the space that I think that you're running in is definitely underserved and overcharged in a lot of instances. I mean, there's like a lot of big firms that'll charge a ton of money to these people, like putting that kind of stuff together, which, kudos to them and kudos to you because, hopefully that means you get a piece of the action. But, and they're very smart people, but they don't really give that, white glove service that as a VCFO you can deliver which is really cool. So I think that's really unique in the fact that I'm sure these people love you whenever they're able to, work with you and see that you can handle everything kind of cradle to grave for them, as far as like investor relations and then just overall structure and setup and advise them on what other people are doing. I mean, most of these folks are probably pretty sophisticated, but they still like to know what's going on with everybody else and know that how operations work, then they can kind of trust you. So really cool how you kind of, I think there's a lot of power there. So, I mean, obviously that allows you to focus more in on marketing and the efforts around what you're doing there. And I know you're doing some speaking engagements and that kind of stuff. But as Jamie mentioned, we heard Clubhouse. I know you work and talk with our marketing director, Kelly, and she keeps bringing up Clubhouse, and I got 4 kids, man. I'll be honest with you. The only thing I'm thinking is like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. Like that song is in my head, like right now. So get that out of my head and tell us a little bit about Clubhouse and how that's been working, and what's it all about, and how might other professionals, other CFOs might be able to leverage that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It is one of those social media platforms that has a ton of potential. And it's different from, say, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, where those are really based around written communication as well as video. And we know everyone's making a huge push into the video space. Clubhouse is different in that it's all audio. So, there's no written communication, there's no video, everything is audio. And if you could imagine being able to step into this virtual space that's almost built like a customized conference where you can step into sessions about just about any topic that you can imagine. Everything from very professional items in terms of business and how to build a business, how to work with your workforce and all these other things, on into ancillary stuff about relationships and the strategy behind having a good relationship. Everything that you can imagine is on that platform. But for us in this professional space, there aren't a lot of tax professionals or strategists that are on there talking about the things that they know. And that's where I had a chance to step in just as an early adopter and get on there and talk. And the fun thing is, if I did a video on Instagram, a video on Facebook or something like that, I got to make sure my lighting is right. I got to make sure, especially if I'm going live, I don't screw up the script and all that other stuff. With Clubhouse, I can literally roll out the bed, open the app. Nobody sees me. It's all audio. I just woke up 10 minutes ago, and I can hop on Clubhouse and add some.
You don't
value,
roll out of bed looking like that right now.
Fix my hair a little bit. But that's the fun thing. You don't have to get ready, right? You could do this thing in your PJs. And the whole idea is, if we're going to position ourselves as subject matter experts and really talk about the stuff that we know, there's a wide group of people out there, national and international, that want to know this stuff. That presents tons of opportunity for firms to grow.
Yeah, so similar to Adam, when I read Clubhouse, I was thinking of the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse song as well. So I had to get my head off of that as well. What is it? Hey Toodles or something? I can't remember because my kid's a little older.
Don't even get me started. I'll start singing.
Oh, man.
That was my first
keep
thought.
on rolling, man.
Are you interested in offering virtual CFO services at your firm or scaling your existing service offerings? The Virtual CFO Playbook, How to Land $60,000 a Year Clients and Provide a Killer Client Experience, is an online series of modules that will equip you with essential tools for creating and delivering scalable VCFO services. These approaches have helped Summit CPA grow from $500,000 to upwards of $5 million in revenue over the past decade. If you're ready to grow your firm, visit summitcpa.net/VCFO Playbook to enroll now.
I guess explain a little bit like what it looks like, how it works. Again, I was researching it prior to this, and I saw it talked about like hallways. But I'm guessing what I'm really curious about is like, how do you find the right topic in the specific place where people are looking, and how narrowed down do you get? Like, do you really go and find every time you're in there, you find people talking about real estate taxes, or is it just they're talking real estate? So I'm just kind of curious about those couple things.
Yeah. So they have this thing called the hallway, and that's when you first open up the app. You're in the hallway, and think of it comparable to your news feed when you open up some of the other apps. It just shows you who's all on there and what conversations are happening. And you scroll through there based on your preferences, and you find rooms that are specific to what you want to hear about, and you can go into those rooms. When you first enter the room, you're going to be a part of the audience, and so you've got a core group of folks on stage. You're in the audience, and you're listening to people talk about whatever is the particular subject. And the cool thing is they have this raise your hand feature to be pulled up on stage. And when you come up on stage, depending on how the room is structured, you could either add value and talk about things from your perspective as a subject matter expert, or ask questions if you want to learn something specific from the experts that are on stage. And so what I did when I got on the app was there were tons of rooms about real estate specifically. How do you get into real estate investing? How do you get into wholesaling? How do you raise funds? All these different rooms. And so I'd go into those rooms and I'd listen for a moment, but the moment a tax question came up, I'm raising my hand and I'm jumping on stage and adding value. Because I saw that as my opportunity. There are virtually no, and I shouldn't say no, but there are very few CPAs, EAs, accountants that are on that platform. And it was an opportunity for me to shine. And, I think in our field, we get very, very nervous about giving out strategy and ideas and having people misconstrue that as giving direct advice and the compliance that goes along with that. And so I started to adapt this phrase before I spoke every time, like, listen, this is not specific tax advice for any one individual. We're just a bunch of friends talking on Clubhouse, and I'm giving you ideas for you to take back to your tax professional and see if that works for you. And if it doesn't, well, I'd love to have a conversation to see if you and I could work together, and then go into my spiel. So, I put that little disclaimer out there and then share ideas on, hey, if you're going to do things like that, these are the tax implications of doing so. And you may want to consider other things like, how do you exit a property appropriately? What really is a cost segregation study? How the heck do we understand depreciation? All things that we know that we take for granted that those folks just found a ton of value in, and that just blew the following up.
Yeah, wow. So then now have you kind of graduated to the point where now you're giving those talks, or are you still just kind of being the participant and making sure you're kind of, I don't want to say trolling people, but you're kind of like, you know what I mean? Like you're in those rooms, like making sure that you're kind of that person. Have you then graduated to the point where now you're the main speaker and you're heading up those topics? Do you get to choose those topics? Does Clubhouse say, hey, these are the areas that we think we need a little bit more support in? How does that all work?
Yeah, there isn't a bunch on the advisory, not advisory, on the analytical side where they can drive you in that direction. But yes, so I created my own club. It's called Precision Tax Planning. We have a couple thousand people that are a part of that club. And so sometimes once a week or as we have time, we'll host rooms and we'll create whatever we want to talk about. And this could be a bunch of different topics. Hey, here are the couple of KPIs that you should measure as a real estate investor. Here are 5 tax strategies that every real estate investor needs to know. So when you think about traditional marketing, they tell us to create these lead magnets, right, to give out value and content. Well, for us, the lead magnet becomes the room. And we walk in there with a couple of things that we want to talk about, but our strategy has been to drive Q&A, let people come up on stage, ask their questions, and get specifically to the heart of what they want to know about. And then in the absence that we don't have Q&A, we've got prepared information that we'll share until something comes up.
How long are those sessions usually?
They go they can be as short as you want, but ours usually run as short as 30 minutes. And I've had some rooms that have run 2.5, 3 hours.
Ooh, marathons, man. Marathons.
That's funny. That's what I can see, because I know when we present sometimes, like, I feel like we'll get like 30 questions, and like at least presentations give us like a locked-in window. Okay, we're here for an hour and a half, so we're going to present for an hour and then 30 minutes of questions. But sometimes the questions just keep rolling in, so I could totally see myself, and especially see Adam, like just taking these meetings for like 2-3 hours just because of the questions and how much we talk and how we can answer and all that good stuff.
I think he just like dealt me a. You're saying I talk a lot, which is true. I'll own
You can own that.
But right, yeah, I'll own that. But what I am curious about though is, like, as you say that, I mean, and I think you're right. I mean, I think that Education's always been our best resource, in terms of marketing. We're not scared to give away free advice. You're always going to have the people that want to do it themselves. Fine. Like, here's some things to think about. Like you said, it's not like specific to you, but here's some things to think about. And then the vast majority of the other people are going to come to you and say, hey, don't you do this? And it's like, well, of course I do. I can help you with that. And then sometimes we get a bunch of referrals from people that were in the room that say, no, not for me. Like, I got this stuff locked down, but Larry, it sounds like you could use their help, and so you'll get referrals that way, which is super cool. But I guess my question is like, if I wanted to do that and I just put like Summit CPA Group as my Clubhouse name, like, how would they know that I want to talk about ABC? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't you want to like name your room like, real estate? Because are you getting a bunch of people that come in there asking you about like what the itemized deduction changes are for 2022? Like, are you getting a lot of that stuff because it's just broadly labeled as like tax, the name of your company? Or do you change the name of the Clubhouse so it's like more real estate centric, like the name of it is, so that whenever they come into there, you're only getting real estate people? How does that work?
Yeah, I think you described it perfectly. So when we run those precision tax planning rooms, we do get a couple of people that flood in and they ask questions that aren't specific to real estate. And depending on what the topic because we get to moderate the room, depending on what the topic is, sometimes we'll go ahead and answer those questions, but then reiterate that, hey, this room is specifically about this particular topic. And folks respect that. So they have an option to either stay and listen, or they got this button on there called quietly exit or quietly leave. And so they can just leave that room and go into another space that talks about things specific to them. But I do think there's a lot of value in naming things specifically after that subject. And there are actually two sides to it. One, it's personal branding and how you show up in these other rooms. So I spend a lot of time in the real estate rooms. So inherently, when you look at my follower base, a lot of them are real estate folks. So even when I run rooms, real estate folks are going to flood in there because they've seen my name associated with it. But on the other side, when you're just getting started, yes, I think specifically you can niche down and name your room, hey, real estate tax strategy room or something of that like, to attract folks that are specific to that niche. And I caution folks of not making the mistake of assuming that their target audience isn't on Clubhouse, because I think you'd be surprised that a lot of folks are. Now, me being in the real estate space, I'm going to name a couple of folks that are big in that area, but I think this is true across all industries. So Grant Cardone, which, love him or hate him, very big name and attractive name in the real estate space. We're often in the same rooms together. Now, I'm not suggesting that he knows exactly who I am, but we've shared the stage. We've passed conversations back and forth, and I've got clients that are really close to Grant and fly on the jet with Grant. But being associated with folks like that are in these spaces that you would otherwise never meet or have the chance to get close to is a huge, huge opportunity. So if there are people that are large in your industry that your clients follow and listen to, see if they're on Clubhouse and be in rooms with them, join the stage with them, and then and talk shop.
Wow, man, you're asking a lot of accountants. You want us to actually like raise our hand first of all, and then but we don't have to be on camera, right? So
that's the good thing.
So we get to hide a little bit, so we can talk as long as we don't have to like show up on camera. Okay, so because I know that freaks a lot. So are they all live events, or are there a lot of stuff that's like pre-recorded? How does that work? Like after a session's done, is there a library where people can go back and listen? How does that work?
Yep. So they just released this feature late last year. It's called Replays. So rooms can now be recorded, and you can go in there and listen to rooms that happened a day or 2 days ago to recap. But for the most part, everything is live. And so you can walk into a room that's been going on for 2.5 hours or that has just started. And there's no set time. Sometimes the rooms will go long. Sometimes they'll go short. And you're not committed. You can go in and out of those rooms. Even when you're a speaker on stage, no one expects you to stay there the entire time. You come in, you add value, you contribute, and if you have to step away because you've got client meetings, then that's just what you do. So some people think, hey, this guy said he's on there for 2 or 3 hours. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a full 2-3 hour run. Sometimes I just have it on in the background. Sometimes I'm on in the morning, then back again in the afternoon. You can pick and choose without having to make a hard commitment.
Okay, so here's the accountant side of me. So I'm hearing all this, and this sounds fascinating. And I'm thinking of all the rooms I'd like to go into and types of rooms that I'm sure exist out there. So tell me a little bit about the cost structure. Like, do you pay to visit? Do you pay to do certain levels, or how exactly does it work to get into it?
Absolutely free. They don't have, and I think Clubhouse within itself is just working on a monetization strategy. Obviously they're going to have to bring in ad dollars at some point, but they don't. It's not a pay-to-play platform. It's really about being in the right rooms, making the right contribution, and that's how you start to amass your following. But no payments at all. They did release a feature where you could be paid, and I've experienced this myself. I haven't made a ton of money. I think I've probably made like $600, but people will tip you for giving good, valuable information. So you can set up your payment feature. And I recall, I think I explained the cost segregation study, and I tried to do it in the most simple terms possible. But there was one guy in there, he was like, hey, that is the best explanation that I've ever heard without all of the complex jargon. I'm buying you lunch. Guy sent me $100.
That's cool. So again, just to follow up with that, so is there any can you share your screen? So again, I know some of the things you could explain are somewhat complicated, and you maybe need to have like just a one slide or like a picture to follow. Is it something you can share a screen to explain something like that for?
No, so there's no screen sharing feature. What I've seen some people do, because they allow you to put a link at the top of your room. So some people will, I've seen developers do this when they're trying to showcase their site plans. They'll put a link to the Zoom. All of the audio runs through Clubhouse, but for those who want to join via Zoom and see the visual, they'll have it there.
Wow, that's pretty neat. That's a cool idea. But the idea is you're trying to just have more of a fluid conversation. So how do you determine then, so you get on there, you have a topic, you go through kind of just, you're spitballing, like the 10-minute kind of conversation that you want to have with yourself, I guess, and then you open it up to the room. I mean, if it's crickets out there, do you just bail, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I've had firsthand experience with that.
that has to feel like crap. You're like, I just dropped a ton of knowledge. Everybody's feeling really good, and then you're just like, nothing.
Everybody
Nobody.
Leaves. You have 50 people, and like 30 leave instantly.
Feels like a staff meeting.
Yeah. Oh man, that's exactly it. I had a room. I think maybe 35 or 40 people were in there, and I was talking about. I forget what the subject was. I was talking about something in particular. Went on for about 10 minutes and said, "Okay, I'm going to pause there to see if we got any questions." No one raised their hand. No one came up on stage. And so it was just a quick pivot of, okay, well, here's some other things for y'all to think about. And then you start to wrap up. So, and that's the fun thing. You can go in there and, again, the room could be as short as 10 minutes. If you don't have the participation, it can be as long as a couple of hours if it does go that long. And it doesn't harm, or at least not to my knowledge. They may have some random algorithm or something, but it doesn't harm your brand because people are following you. Obviously, they're in that room because the subject was interesting to them. And so you start to get a feel for, as I do rooms about this particular thing, the engagement goes this way. When I talk about this thing, no one wants to hear about it, so let me stay away from that topic. For us in the real estate space, depreciation is just low-hanging fruit. No matter how many times I talk about it, real estate investors love to hear about it, so that's a core part of what we just constantly hammer on.
I think what's really cool is the instant feedback too. Like, how many times have we sat in a room, Adam, and been like, let's think of a topic to present on, and we sit there and we throw ideas out and we talk about it, and we're like, do you think they're really interested in listening to that? Like, you could use Clubhouse to like just gauge the interest in that. And so you go into a room of 50 people and you talk about something for 5 minutes, and if you get a ton of questions on it, then obviously it's something you can present or talk about elsewhere. Like, there's not many tools where you get instant feedback. Like, we do a podcast, we release it a month later, we see how many downloads we get, and that's the feedback we get. Or, we go and present and we get the feedback there. But again, we put all these hours and time into putting the slides together and putting the presentation until we get the feedback. So here it's like a really good opportunity to gauge what the topics are that are hot right now.
Yeah. Yep. And seeing 2 downloads, Jamie's wife and my wife, is embarrassing. Pretty depressing. Yeah. So, but I mean, it is what it is. So the with that though, I guess I'm curious is, like, how do you determine your speaking schedule? Do you have to let them know a week in advance, a month in advance? Like, I assume that you have to have some kind of communication with them, like, hey, I'm going to open up this thing, because they have to be able to broadcast it to the group somehow. So what's the time commitment, and what does that look like to get that dialed in on like a weekly basis or a monthly basis, however you're doing it?
Yeah, good question. It's completely up to the individual. So literally right now, we could open a room and just start talking, and whoever's available on the app, they could join that room if they like the conversation, or they'll get a notification if they followed us. So you could be as dialed in on timing as you want, or you can be, very forget the word that I'm looking for.
Sporadic.
Sporadic. You can be as sporadic as you want. It's always best, of course, to time it out, because when you have a club, you can create a room. And once you create that room, it notifies all the members of the club that, hey, Precision Tax Planning is going to do a room on Monday at 3 p.m. on this topic. And so people can prepare for it. But if there's something that just came to mind that you want to talk about, you can open up the app and just go live right away.
That's interesting. Yeah, you'd think you'd want to kind of and then the people that are following you, are those the people that get the notification, or is it everybody in Clubhouse gets the notification of like what's going on that day?
Yep. So the people that follow you definitely get the notification, and then the people that follow those folks will get a notification that says, "Hey, Adam just joined this room talking about the 5 KPIs for real estate investors," and if they're interested, they'll join as well. So that's another key strategy, is that as you build relationships on there, pulling people in who have larger followings, that way their tribe is notified, and that starts to build out your following as well.
Wow, super interesting. And last question from me, I promise. I know I'm
I can tell you and I are like fascinated by this.
Over. I'm still trying to figure this out. So if you record this either in their system or on Zoom, I assume, because you said you could have it feeding from both places, right, at the same time. Because I assume the audio still comes through the Zoom, right? So if we had like our weekly fireside chat and we could actually have the chat in Clubhouse technically, right, and still have it in Zoom. Do you do you repurpose some of that content, like some of those conversations? Will you record and like put snippets into? Well, I guess that there's no video, so maybe that doesn't apply to other social media stuff, or I don't know. How does that work?
It does. So Clubhouse has this feature called Clips. And of course, you have to be ready for it, right? But if you know that you're going to say something that you want to repurpose in other platforms, you can clip it and then save it and put it on those platforms. So I've done that on Instagram. So if you look at my Instagram, which is Larry D. West III, you can scroll through there and you'll see clips from Clubhouse. And what I've done is basically used that as testimonial. So some of my clients are on Clubhouse, and occasionally when we're in rooms, they'll say, "Hey, I've worked with this guy. He is phenomenal. All y'all need to work with him." And I'll take those clips and then repurpose that on some of our other social media. And so it's not a video per se, but if you've seen where other folks, like even with podcasting, you can take a snippet or a picture and then just have the audio play across the screen.
Right.
And that's what you can do with Clubhouse to repurpose.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it would also make sense. Like for us, we're big into SEO, so we have content writers. So and rather than them interviewing you on topics and trying to be like writing different stuff for you, it would make a lot of sense to have them listen to some of those conversations if they're recorded, and then they can repurpose the content in articles and stuff like that. Like, hey, this was a big topic, and they can kind of figure that stuff out. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think this has been a amazing podcast. I think this is one that I'll probably even listen to. I try not to listen to our podcast too often, but I'll go back and listen to this one because I think this is, like you said, it's untapped. I'm sure there's just not that many CPAs in there, and I'm curious to log in there and check out what's going on. I'm definitely going to try it out today. So I appreciate you coming on, Larry, and bringing this topic to us. And I'm going to give you one final thought here. So what final thoughts do you have for our audience?
Do it. Don't hesitate. Just jump into it. I think for us in this space, and maybe it's just the nature of accountants, we're usually shy to get on platforms and share information, share knowledge, or we just believe we're too busy. This is one of those things that doesn't take a ton of commitment. You can just have it playing in the background. But I think whether it's Clubhouse, and then there are competitors that are jumping into the space, like Twitter has Spaces and things like that. It's an audio platform. It's unlike the other ones out there, so it's definitely ripe with opportunity. So jump on and see what you can make happen.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you today, Larry, and thanks for all the questions, Adam. I know this was a good topic, so appreciate you guys and excited for our audience to find out all about Clubhouse. So thanks again.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Larry.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website at summitcpa.net to get more tips and strategies for achieving modern CPA firm success. We're here to be a resource in this ever-changing industry.